Hello, my name is Iris Bigdan. I am the Field Director of IDAP, attached to INDOPACOM, and I am happy to be giving this presentation of the laws of war, a briefing from IDAP to the armed forces about international humanitarian law and the law of armed conflict. The purpose of this briefing is to educate transitioning personnel on the laws of armed conflict, emphasize a shift from neutral humanitarian work to lawful combatant responsibilities, ensure compliance with international and military legal standards, and protect and maintain ethical military conduct with civilians. Now we are at the role of IDAP on the battlefield. Let me first introduce us. We are IDAP, which is the International Development and Aid Project. Our key mission is to deliver humanitarian aid assistance in conflict zones. Our key functions are medical aid to civilians, food and water distribution, infrastructure repair, and civilian extraction and shelter. We operate under protection of the Geneva Convention, Chapter 4, Article 30. Rules governing IDAP conduct. IDAP is a neutral humanitarian aid organization. We have no alignment with any armed group. Operations must remain impartial. Key restrictions: no weapons can be carried in IDAP vehicles or facilities. No armed escorts unless mandated by UN resolution. Personnel must not engage in combat or intelligence activities. IDAP vehicles and convoys are marked and protected by international humanitarian aid law. If IDAP violates these rules, we have the risk of losing protection status under Geneva Convention, Chapter 4, Article 30. What is international humanitarian law? International humanitarian law, or IHL for short, is a law of armed conflict. It governs conduct during armed conflicts under the Geneva Convention and additional protocols. It is based on Geneva Convention 1 through 4, additional protocols 1 and 2, customary international law. It applies to both state and non-state actors and international and non-international conflicts. Core principles of the laws of armed conflicts is distinguishing civilians from combatants, using proportional force and not going excessively forceful in military operations. Military necessity, which means only using actions necessary for achieving a military goal. And the final key point is humanity, which is prohibiting unnecessary suffering and maintaining human dignity. Rules of engagement. Operational guidelines that define when, where, and how force may be used. These rules of engagement must comply with the laws of armed conflict and international humanitarian aid law, as well as Indo-Pacific Command directives. Rules of engagement emphasize positive identification of hostile targets with an intent to act, use of minimal force required, and accountability at all levels. The Geneva Convention states protected individuals and sites through Chapter 1 through 4. Obviously, protected persons and sites will include civilians, medical personnel and facilities, humanitarian aid workers, religious, cultural, and historic sites, children in educational facilities. It's really important to note that this protection is lost if these assets become used for military purposes. So if a civilian arms himself and engages in combat, they are now not protected under the Geneva Convention. And if a site, like a hospital or a church, is used for combat engagements, they are not protected under Geneva Convention law. Prohibited conduct under the laws of armed conflict include targeting civilians, torture and cruel treatment. This includes civilians and POWs. Collective punishment, attacking hospitals, school, and aid convoys. But of course, like I mentioned in the last slide, these exemptions will be revoked if used in a military manner. Use of prohibited weapons, chemical weapons. Illegal weapons should be taught to you by your command. These include chemical weapons and cluster bombs. Treatment of detainees. All detainees must be treated humanely, protected from violence, intimidation, or insults, given access to medical care, not subjected to torture or degrading treatment. Detention centers are subject to inspection by neutral parties, reporting violations and command responsibility. You all have an obligation to report violations of this under international law. Commanders are responsible for war crimes committed under their authority if not prevented or punished. All war crimes should be reported through the chain of command and legal advisors. Whistleblowing protection may apply under national law. Case study discussion. Scenario: armed unit mistakenly strikes a marked IDAP convoy. Questions: was distinction applied correctly? Was the convoy providing military support? How should the unit respond? Were the rules of engagement followed? What legal consequences may apply? Final takeaways. Laws of war are binding and critical to mission legitimacy. Know the difference between civilians and combatants. Understand protected persons and sites. Rules of engagement compliance is essential. Report violations. Silence can equal complicity. Uphold professionalism and legal responsibility. Listed on the screen is a list of resources that you could look at and come over in your own free time. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and thank you for following the laws of war and making the world a better place.